All right, everyone, get ready for a deep dive
Buckle up.
into a true crime mystery.
This one's a doozy.
It's got twists and turns.
Betrayal.
Yeah, and it all starts with a seemingly simple death in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Small town.
Exactly. You think nothing much happens in these places.
Right. But boy, were they wrong.
So we've got a 62-year-old woman, Lynn Hearnan.
Nah, in the best of health.
No, she had lung disease, high blood pressure.
Chronic GI issues too, poor thing.
Yeah, lots of problems, and her doctors were really struggling.
To get a handle on it all.
Exactly. It was during this time when she was so vulnerable that Jesse Kerseski entered the picture.
The adopted daughter, or so she said.
Right, acting as Lynn's caretaker.
And wouldn't you know it, Jesse was the one to call the police when Lynn died.
October 2018 it was.
And at first glance, everything looked like a suicide.
Open and shut case.
Well, that's what they thought.
Officers arrive at Lynn's condo.
Find her in her recliner.
Surrounded by empty pill bottles, there was even this white powder everywhere.
On the carpet, even on Lynn's chest.
Spooky.
And friends of Lynn told police that she'd been really down lately.
Because of her health, I'd imagine.
That's right. They said she was despondent.
So, suicide round.
Seemed like it.
But then the medical examiner's report came back.
And oh boy, did it throw a wrench in the works.
What'd they find?
No trace of those pills in Lynn's system.
Really?
Nope, not a single one.
So what was it then?
Well, they found something completely unexpected.
What was it?
Tetrahydrozoline.
What?
Tetrahydrozoline.
What is that exactly?
It's the active ingredient in Visine.
You mean like eye drops?
That's right, the stuff that gets the red out.
So she was poisoned.
Essentially, yeah, it's perfectly safe to use in your eyes, as directed.
Right.
But ingesting it, well, that's a whole different story.
And how much did she ingest?
Enough to be lethal, the levels in her system were sky high.
Wow, so no suicide.
No, the medical examiner ruled it a homicide.
Someone intentionally poisoned Lynn with eye drops.
That's what it looks like.
And that's where the investigation takes a sharp turn.
Towards Jesse Kerseski.
The so-called adopted daughter.
The one who presented herself as Lynn's devoted caretaker.
The one who called the police.
Exactly.
So what did they find out about Jessie?
Well, let's just say she wasn't who she appeared to be.
Uh-oh, this is getting good.
Hold on tight, because we're about to unravel a web of deception.
Okay, I'm ready. Tell me more.
It turns out Jessie wasn't just caring for Lynn.
What do you mean?
She was stealing from her, systematically siphoning money from Lynn's account.
What? No way.
Oh, it gets worse. She was doing it before Lynn died.
And after?
Oh, yeah, even after.
Wow, so how much are we talking about here?
Over $200,000.
$200,000. That's insane.
It's a shocking amount, right?
How did she even manage to pull that off?
It was a carefully orchestrated scheme. She wrote checks to herself with misleading memos.
Like what?
Things like IRS payment, car payment, that sort of thing.
Oh.
Not clever enough, though. She also opened credit cards in Lynn's name.
Racking up even more debt.
You got it.
So she was basically draining Lynn's life savings.
Exactly, leaving her vulnerable and desperate.
That's terrible.
It is. It's a classic case of elder abuse.
And what about those empty pill bottles at the scene?
Well, the police started to think that whole thing was staged.
To make it look like a suicide.
Exactly, a clever attempt to mislead the police.
But it didn't work.
Nope, backfired spectacularly.
So we've got a potential motive, financial gain, but what did Jessie say when they questioned her?
At first, she denied any involvement in Lynn's death.
What did she say happened?
She claimed that Lynn frequently used eye drops for dry eyes.
But wouldn't someone who accidentally ingests that much eye drops, show other symptoms?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah, did the investigation look into that?
They were skeptical, especially with the medical examiner's findings and the whole financial fraud thing coming to light.
So what happened next? Did Jessie stick to her story?
Well, after a night in jail, her story started to change.
How so?
She claimed that Lynn had this habit of mixing Visine with vodka.
Visine and vodka.
Well, I know, it sounds bizarre, right?
Very bizarre. So what was she saying?
That Lynn did this to get a buzz.
A buzz from Visine and vodka. Come on.
It's a strange claim for sure.
And did the police buy it?
Not really, but it gets even weirder.
How?
Jessie's story changed again. She then claimed she actually saw Lynn pouring 6 bottles of Visine into a water bottle on the day she died.
6 bottles.
That's what she said.
But she drank it all.
That's the story.
Okay, so first it was Lynn used eye drops for dry eyes, then it was Lynn mixed Visine with vodka, and now it's I saw Lynn drink 6 bottles of Visine.
It's a lot of changes, right?
Yeah, and it's not just suspicious, it's like textbook manipulative behavior.
You're right. It's a classic tactic in elder abuse cases.
Trying to control the narrative.
Exactly.
And did it work?
Well, not really, because there's more.
What do you mean?
Remember those handwritten letters they found at the scene?
Yeah.
Turns out those were instructions from Jesse to a friend.
Instructions. For what?
To fabricate evidence.
To support her claims.
Exactly.
She was trying to frame someone else.
Looks like it.
And they actually found these instructions.
Oh, yeah. Even caught her on camera in jail, packaging them up to be sent out.
Oh, so that's pretty damning evidence, right?
You can say that.
So what happened next?
Well, with all this evidence piling up against her, the case went to trial, and things got even more complicated.
Complicated how?
Well, you had friends testifying, medical experts weighing in, the defense trying to make the case that Lynn died by suicide.
But how could they argue that with all the evidence against Jesse?
They focused on Lynn's health problems, her supposed depression.
Trying to paint a picture of someone who was desperate enough to take her own life.
Exactly.
But the prosecution wasn't having it.
They methodically dismantled those arguments, pointing to the inconsistencies in Jesse's stories, the financial theft, those incriminating letters she tried to send from jail.
So what did the jury think?
They deliberated for over 10 hours.
10 hours.
10 and a half, to be exact.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is. Shows you how seriously they took the case.
And what was the verdict?
Guilty.
On all counts.
First-degree intentional homicide and theft.
Wow.
Yeah, Jesse was sentenced to life in prison.
Life in prison?
With the possibility of parole after 40 years.
That's a long time.
It is. And even facing all that, Jesse remained defiant.
Right.
Gave a whole statement at her sentencing, claimed she was innocent, said she was being held responsible for Lynn's own choices.
But her words didn't really land with those who knew the truth, right?
No, not really, no. Especially when you consider the financial exploitation. I mean, Lynn trusted Jesse, treated her like family.
And Jesse just used that trust to her advantage.
It's heartbreaking, a classic case of elder abuse. Lynn was vulnerable physically and emotionally, and Jesse took advantage of that.
It's awful. And the fact that Jesse had a prior conviction for identity theft and forgery.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
Makes you wonder if this was a pattern of behavior.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Was Lynn just another victim in a long line of people Jesse took advantage of?
It's a disturbing thought.
It is, and it highlights how important it is to protect vulnerable individuals, especially as our population ages.
We need to be aware of the signs of elder abuse.
Absolutely. Financial exploitation, neglect, physical harm. If something doesn't feel right, speak up.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Couldn't agree more. This case shows how abusers can operate right under our noses.
It's terrifying.
It is. So stay informed, trust your bet, and be an advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves.
That's great advice. So, in the end, justice was served. Jesse was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. But I imagine Lynn's loved ones are still left with a lot of unanswered questions.
Absolutely. The betrayal, the feeling that someone they trusted could do something so horrific.
And the question of why would Jesse go to such lengths?
For money.
It seems like greed was a major factor, but was there more to it?
Maybe a personal vendetta? A need for control?
It's hard to say for sure.
Some questions may never be answered.
But I think it's important to acknowledge the impact this crime had on Lynn's family and friends.
The trauma, the grief, the feeling of being violated.
It's devastating.
And then there's the bigger issue of tetrahydrozoline poisoning itself.
Yeah, I mean, before this case, I had no idea eye drops could be used as a murder weapon.
It's not something most people think about.
So how prevalent is this type of poisoning?
That's a good question, one we don't really have a good answer to.
Is it something we should be more worried about?
It's definitely something to be aware of, especially given how easy it is to obtain over-the-counter eye drops.
Right, so what can we do to prevent similar tragedies from happening?
Well, we could look into making tetrahydrozoline less accessible.
Or maybe modify its formula so it's less toxic if ingested.
That's a possibility.
What about public awareness campaigns?
That's a great idea. We need to educate people about the potential dangers of misusing everyday products.
Maybe even stronger warning labels on eye drop bottles.
That could help too. I think it's tragic that it took something as horrible as this case to bring this issue to light.
But hopefully, Lynn Hearnan's death can be a catalyst for change.
I hope so.
Now, what about Jesse's mother, Jennifer Flower,
Ah, yes, Jennifer, she was close to Lynn.
and seemed to be aware of what Jesse was doing.
That's right, but she was never charged with any crime.
So, what was her role in all of this?
It's unclear. Was she complicit in Jesse's scheme? Or was she also a victim manipulated by her own daughter?
It's a troubling aspect of the case.
It really is. Shows how family dynamics can complicate these situations, how secrets and lies can fester even within the closest of bonds.
It's a reminder that things are not always what they seem.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been fascinating and disturbing.
We've uncovered a story of betrayal, greed, and a truly unconventional murder weapon.
And we've explored the complexities of elder abuse.
It's a reminder that we all need to be vigilant, to think critically, and to protect those who are most vulnerable.
But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the judge's question during Jesse's sentencing.
Oh, yes, that was chilling.
Do you remember what she said?
Yeah, she asked if Jesse had been slowly poisoning Lynn all along, using tetrahydrozoline as this undetectable weapon.
That's a terrifying thought.
It is. It suggests a level of premeditation and cunning that's almost unimaginable.
Makes you wonder how many other cases like this might be out there.
How many deaths we've attributed to natural causes that were actually something more sinister.
It's a sobering thought.
It is, but I also think it's a call to action.
We can't let Lynn's death be in vain. We need to learn from this case, raise awareness, and do everything we can to prevent similar tragedies from happening.
I couldn't agree more. I agree. It really makes you think twice about, what we consider safe.
Yeah, like something as simple as eye drops.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even everyday items can have a dark side.
So where do we go from here? What can we as listeners take away from all of this?
Well, for me, it really underscores the importance of awareness.
Awareness.
Elder abuse, for one, it can take so many forms.
Yeah, we talked about financial exploitation, neglect, but what are some other red flags we should be looking out for?
Changes in behavior, that's a big one.
Like what?
Sudden withdrawal from social activities, maybe they're more anxious or fearful around a particular caregiver. Unexplained injuries.
Unexplained injuries.
Yeah, bruises, cuts, things like that.
That's scary.
It is. And, abusers can be very manipulative.
No,
They use isolation, gaslighting, anything to control their victims.
So what can we do if we suspect something's wrong?
Trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it.
But what if we're wrong?
It's better to be safe than sorry. Talk to the person you're concerned about. Reach out to other family members, friends, or even the authorities.
The authorities.
Yeah, if you think there's immediate danger, don't hesitate to call the police.
This case also shows how important a thorough investigation is.
Absolutely. The dedication of those investigators, the medical examiner who went the extra mile.
Right. If they hadn't done those specific tests, who knows what would have happened?
Jesse might have gotten away with it.
It's a frightening thought.
It is, but it also highlights the power of forensic science.
So are there things we can do to make this kind of poisoning harder to pull off?
I think so. Maybe modify the formula of tetrahydrozoline, make it less toxic if ingested.
Or stricter regulations on who can buy it?
That could be an option too, and of course, public awareness campaigns.
We need to educate people about the potential dangers of misusing these products.
Exactly. Even something as simple as a stronger warning label on the bottle.
Yeah, like warning, ingesting this product can be fatal.
Exactly. It's tragic that it took a case like this to bring this issue to light.
But hopefully Lynn's death can be a catalyst for change.
I hope so.
Well, this has been truly eye-opening deep dive.
It has, hasn't it?
We've uncovered a story of betrayal, greed, a chilling murder weapon.
And we've learned about the devastating impact of elder abuse.
It's a reminder that we all have a role to play in protecting vulnerable individuals.
By staying informed, trusting our instincts, and speaking up when we see something wrong.
We can help prevent tragedies like this from happening again.
That's right. Knowledge is power, and together we can make a difference.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me for this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, even the most ordinary things can have a dark side.